What is a really bad scene in an otherwise good movie? When Ginny feeds Harry that tart in Half-Blood Prince. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v=jwrl-x. De Niro's foot stomp in The Irishman.
The scene in American Sniper with the baby doll instead of a real baby.
Talia al Ghul's death in Dark Knight Rises. Superman 1978. Superman takes Lois Lane for a flight around the city and she starts doing an inner monologue that's a poem.
The Lost World, Jurassic Park, has that scene with the little girl trapeze kicking a velociraptor out a window and killing it. Sort of takes you out of it a bit.
Hold Your Fire. There are no life forms. It must have been short-circuited.
The babysitter giving her nude pictures to the kid at the end of Crazy, Stupid, Love.
I love The Last Unicorn, but the scene with the tree with tits trying to get it on with the magician is pretty goddamn mind-breaking. When Ginny Weasley ties Harry's shoes.
Every scene with Cameron Diaz in Gangs of New York. Okay, that scene in The Notebook where they are at the beach and the girl starts flapping her arms like a moron saying she's a bird, I get embarrassed just watching it.
The sex scene in The Matrix. So awkward.
All the Harry-Ginny scenes in, you guessed it, Harry Potter.
The ending of Grease, when Sandy and Danny fly away in the car. Like really? Also the end of the first Twilight when Bella's in the hospital, and Edward suggests she move to Florida. Her reaction was ridiculously lame. Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, so wrong. The scene where Robert De Niro attacks the grocer in The Irishman, it's really awkward and bad looking.
The ending in I Am Legend. Pirates of the Caribbean, where Elizabeth Swann is on the pirate's trampoline thing. The scene with Cats, in the movie Cats. The scene in HP and the Deathly Hallows where Ron can open the Chamber of Secrets by speaking Parseltongue. All because Harry talks in his sleep. WTF J.K. Rowling. Really?
The sex scene with Night Owl banging Silk Spectre 2 in his airship, ending with the airship ejaculating fire at the same time he does. All while Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen plays in the background. Watchmen. I love Tombstone, but the room service scene at the end of the movie is cringy. I usually turn it off after the Doc Holliday hospice scene.
When they try and age Daniel Radcliffe and the others at the end of Harry Potter 7. The Dark Knight Rises. The subplot if Catwoman not being able to steal a new identity. Also Daggett's exposition concerning this.
The sex scene in Kingsman 2. I have never been so uncomfortable in my life. It's not an otherwise good movie, but little kid Anakin in the control ship was an insanely stupid scene. When Frodo wakes up in Rivendell after destroying the ring in Return of the King, and they all come in one by one in slow motion and give each other cheesy looks. Not so much bad as unrealistic. In The Deer Hunter, when the guys drove from the city, Clareton, PA to the Allegheny Mountains to go hunting, there aren't mountains that look like that within 2,000 miles of the city. Filming location was near Mountain Baker in WA. At the end of Grease, when the car starts flying. Makes no sense.
Any scene Emma Frost was in for X-Men First Class.
In general, sex scenes.
The fucking scene at the end of The Dark Knight Rises when Talia drives the nuke off the road and down the lower street level. She has the worst death scene I've ever seen in any movie, all the while Commissioner Gordon hops out of the container with the nuke and is perfectly fine. Drives me nuts every time I watch that movie.
Keanu Reeves' entire performance in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins is usually everyone's go-to for terrible accents, but I give that slightly more of a pass since it was at least meant to be a fun, light-hearted family film. Dracula, however, is supposed to be a serious gothic horror, and we're not supposed to laugh at Reeves spluttering out Corfax Abba, give me strength.
The entire casino subplot from The Last Jedi. The worst scene in the best movie ever. Sonny missing Carlo by a mile with a punch during Street Fight. If not for that, perfect. Anne Hathaway talking about love being the fourth dimension or some shit like that in Interstellar.
Role Models with Paul Rudd and Seann William Scott is such a hilarious movie, but I felt like this scene https://youtube.be/lek_lkpd3rm felt a bit weird. One of my favorite movie, the funniest ever done emo, is The Life of Brian by the Monty Python. There is that one scene with an UFO, I still don't know WTF it's there for. The dialogue between Leia and Han in ROTJ when she just randomly goes, "Hold me," Lucas really wrote romance based on dumb women from old Western films or something lol.
The scene where Sonny beats the shit out of Carlo in The Godfather. I appreciate why it was in the movie, but I've seen more convincing punches exchanged by two action figures in the hands of a hyperactive 8-year-old. The ghostly blowjob scene in Ghostbusters. What were they thinking?
The sex scene with Joe Pesci and Sharon Stone in Casino.
The riding the cheetah part of Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. The death of David Dunn, Bruce Willis in M. Night Shyamalan's Glass 2019. Not that he died, just death by no-name random soldier in a parking lot puddle. Other than that, good movie.
The bullet reconstruction scene in The Dark Knight. It just doesn't make any sense.
The scene in that Pokémon movie where Pikachu actually fucking talks. Totally robbed the emotional impact from the scene that would have otherwise been a great reversal of the time Ash died in the Mewtwo movie.
I loved Avengers: Endgame, but hearing Don Cheadle say everyone in this room is all about that superhero life makes me cringe every time.
I liked most of The Last Jedi, but Space Witch Leia flying frozen into an airlock looked awful in an otherwise beautifully shot movie.
The scene in The Beach where Leo turns into a video game.
The scene where Anakin and Padme argue about who's so in love with the other one. Revenge of the Sith is otherwise a very good film. The Coca-Cola and McDonald's commercial in the middle of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Really killed my immersion in the film.
The ending of Pretty Woman when Julia Roberts says she rescues him right back. A lot of Star Wars comments. Even as a huge fanboy I gotta say the movies are far from perfect. There's always one or two particular scenes from each movie that felt off.
The girl power scene in Endgame. Captain Marvel just took blasts from Thanos' ship, flew through said ship and did this all without breaking a sweat. But she needs help flying through some generic bad guys and all the other female Avengers show up. Some of whom were doing other things on the opposite side of the battlefield. Some of whom have no powers at all.
Any scene with Ares in Wonder Woman.
I don't like sand. It's rough and coarse and gets everywhere.
The cafe scene in Bohemian Rhapsody.
That one part in Cats between when the movie starts and when it ends. When they fail to take Thanos' gauntlet because Star-Lord starts crying like a little bitch and ruins everything. In the first Superman movie, the scene where he take Lois flying, and she's got this inner monologue going, "Can you read my mind? My husband and I will randomly look at each other and bust this quote out because it's so damn funny." Totally out of sync with the rest of the movie. When Neil dies in _Dead Poets Society _ and his father finds him in his home office. It gets slow motion and he screams, "No. It's ridiculous."
The very ending of A Quiet Place. The movie was so good, very realistic, but the end just screwed it all up.
Good movie, obviously subjective, but I really enjoyed Rise of Skywalker but felt like the kiss scene between the two main characters was very awkward and forced.
Just watched The Bodyguard the other night after God knows how many years. There were a few scenes that was okay at the time the movie was made, but that last kiss, at the airport. My gosh, ruined the movie for me. Didn't remember it to be that bad.
When they do, the Scarn in Threat Level Midnight. Way too light of a tone in such a serious film.
Quentin Tarantino trying to get his lines out talking to Jules in Pulp Fiction. And they say Samuel used to stutter. Harvey Dent's court scene in The Dark Knight. It's laughably trash and cheesy. Worst, it comes right after the beautiful heist opening scene.
Not related to the question, but my dad once rented an R-rated TV movie from a video store. He didn't know why it was rated R until he discovered that they had stuck random sex scenes with completely different actors in an otherwise normal TV movie.
The scene in Interstellar where they say love is a force of nature or some shit.
The last scene in The Departed with the rat.
The end of Mystic River. It's really cheesy how Sean Penn's wife is talking like a stereotypical villain, about how they can run this city even though it didn't fit her character at all. It's just really random.
I hated how they portrayed that whole relationship in the movies, like in the book Ginny aggressively kisses Harry after a Quidditch win and they date for a few months. In the movie, it's an awkward kiss while hiding the book, which also did not happen. Like I know they aren't romancing movies, but Harry worrying about Ron being okay with it was a huge plotline in the whole book they just ignored.